Takes a little minute. Hi there, I'm Tim Hughes. I'm the co-founder of Digital Leadership Associates. I'm also the author of the book, Social Selling, Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers. With me today, I've got Sharni-Marie Barney, and we're talking about 5 things that you can do. Now, we're not calling it as a digital nomad, are you? Because you don't call yourself a digital nomad, but you are traveling. But before we get to that, Sharni, why don't you introduce yourself and tell everybody where they can get hold of you?
Sure. Thanks, Tim. And thanks for having me on the show. It's awesome. So I'm from Forge Marketing. I'm the digital strategist and also the owner of Forge Marketing. That's FORJ for those trying to Google it. But they can find me on my website, so forgemarketing.com. I'm also all over Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, any of those.
So on Twitter, you're Sharni Barney, aren't you?
I'm actually no. My Twitter name is actually Marie Sharni.
It's Marie Sharni, right? Okay.
Back to front, yeah.
Yes.
But yeah.
Okay.
But they'll find me.
Right. So before we get into this digital nomad thing, it was interesting because we met in London.
Yeah.
People might better tell by your accent that you're not English or American. Maybe not. So you're Australian from a very small island, aren't you? Just off Australia.
Yeah, so I'm actually originally from South Australia, so right down near Adelaide in a small sort of coastal town called Port Lincoln. But I was living on an island called Norfolk Island when I started my business. Now, Norfolk Island is a very tiny island in the South Pacific, 1,600 kilometres east of Brisbane. So it's very isolated. It's only 7 by 5 kilometres or 8 by 5 kilometres, so pretty small, but that's where I actually started my business. So it was an amazing place to start, and one of the reasons that my business very quickly went sort of global, because I had to kind of try and find networks outside of the island very quickly to help me grow my business, which is then how I met you, obviously, through Twitter.
Yeah. So you started off doing some work, but basically on the island in terms of building their digital marketing presence, etc. And then in terms of the growth, you needed to go global to a certain extent.
Yeah, so when I first started a few years ago, I was basically working with local businesses on the island to try and get them a greater exposure for their businesses, because the island is only tourism based as far as the economy goes. They rely solely on tourism. So a lot of the businesses I was working for were accommodation properties, cafes. There was a local gym there as well. Trying to sort of give them that exposure outside of just the sort of standard travel. Travel sellers like wholesalers and things. So that's how it started. And then, I suddenly realized that I was going to, kind of use up my resources with the clients there pretty quickly. And thankfully, amazingly, I've actually still got most of them as clients to this day. They've hung in there with me as I've been traveling. So that's been amazing. But so I sort of realized that being in a digital marketing kind of business, that I could actually have clients all over the world, no worries, because that, I was already communicating with people online. And the digital marketing kind of sphere now is very easy, with Skype and things like that, to communicate with people. So I just started getting a lot of referrals from all different people I knew around the world, and picked up clients. Actually, I think at last count we were working with clients in 8 different countries around the world in 3 different languages. So that was pretty crazy. Yeah.
So you started off, and you and your family. So the key thing is you're not a digital. You said to me, "I'm not a digital nomad." I'm not. The definition of a digital nomad is somebody possibly traveling by themselves, or but going from Starbucks to Starbucks, generally writing. You've actually decided to pick up the whole of the family. So your husband and your 2 children, and go traveling.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
And run a business.
Yep. We never do anything. I'm never do anything in halves, Tim. I'm pretty full on when it comes to making a decision to do something. But no, we wanted to go traveling, and I said to my husband, well, I can work anywhere, so why don't we try and make it work? But one of the big things I was very passionate about was being able to learn because I was already working with businesses in all different countries, I really wanted to go and learn how business operated in each country, how the people there operate, how people grow businesses, how people communicate within their businesses, you know, what digital platforms people were using in different countries, which, you know, you go from country to country and it varies significantly. So I really wanted to break that kind of bubble with my own business and try and learn a lot more about that as we were traveling, which was one of the key things. And obviously have some fun, you know, as you do when you're traveling along the way. But yeah, no, I don't call myself a digital nomad, for not that I have anything against, you know, the digital nomad lifestyle, but you know, I really do run the business just like I would if I was, you know, sitting in an office in the middle of Sydney. You know, I pretty much start work at 7 in the morning and work till 4 in the afternoon, you know, spend some time with the family and then pick up work again about 7 o'clock at night and work through into the night. So I'm in that stage of really growing my business, which, you know, people who are in that stage know what it's like. You're sort of putting in the hard yards. And I'm doing that while we're traveling. So it's no different. But yeah, the freelance thing is slightly different from people that I've met. It's a different setup, different structure. I've had to sort of grow the business, you know, quite quickly while we've been traveling. I've also put on extra staff since I've been traveling as well. So
you've recruited another 3 heads, I understand, yeah.
Yeah. So
and they're geographically dispersed as well, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, so I've got 3 staff now on my team. My main girl is actually in Melbourne, and I met her on Twitter as well. I've actually only spent, I think, 1 day in total with her in the last 6 months in person. So she's she's in Melbourne. That's Kelly O'Donnell, if anyone wants to look her up. And then I've got another 2 sort of part-timers who are in, one of them's actually in India. So he's my what I call my growth hacker, for want of a better word. He does a lot of the growth on our accounts and email marketing. And then I've got another girl who manages some of our social media, who's actually based currently in Ukraine. Right. So my team's all over the place as well.
Actually, you've actually recruited those on the fly, haven't you, while you've been traveling?
I have, yes. So the way that I work with my business, someone actually asked me the other day, well, how do you know, what they're like as far as, staff go? And I'm very big on relationships. So before even with my clients, that's one of the key things that I focus on is, building that strong relationship with a client or with your staff. And so I met all 3 of them through various networks and platforms online. And, I could sort of see, obviously with how exposed you are in social media these days, I can see what sort of activity they were doing for themselves and for other clients online. And so I could see, the type of work they were doing. So that's kind of how I picked them up.
Yes. It's amazing, actually, how you can draw conclusions from what people's activity is online.
Yeah, in a big way.
And I've seen many a person that have come to me and said that they're a social media expert, and then you go to their Twitter and they've got 200 followers. For me, that doesn't kind of really match up, but it takes all sorts, I guess. So maybe you're working across 3 different time zones.
With my staff, yes, 3 different time zones. With my current clients, I think I'm working across about 5 different zones. Yeah.
And how do you decide where you go? Because I know since we met in London, you'd been working in Bath, which is to the west of the United Kingdom. You're now somewhere else. Yeah. Last time when we had a conversation about this call, you were going to go to Manchester and Liverpool, which I'm pointing upwards because for me it's north.
Sure.
So how do you and before you'd come to the UK, you'd been in Thailand. Yeah,
that's right. So when we made our plan, my husband's actually got family in the UK, which is why we ended up here. But when we made our plan, there were two things that dictate where we go. First of all, obviously there has to be a good Wi-Fi connection. Yep. But also we're pretty much following a pattern of where my clients are and where my networks are. So when we ended up in Thailand, the guy that I've been working with for a couple of years, who does a lot of the web development work for us, he was based in Thailand. And so I really wanted to go and spend some time with him. So that's kind of what sent us there. And we were also trying to sort of delay coming here because of the winter was still happening over here and we're not so keen on the cooler climates. But yeah, so we're going to Liverpool because I've got a couple of connections up there that I've met through Twitter. And then we'll head over to Dublin. And again, I've got a business connection there, and Norway, clients and business connections. So we're kind of following that pattern a little bit, is where we know people. Yeah.
And just for people watching, there's a very much a domestic thing, because you and your husband is very much a team, because you're homeschooling your children, aren't you?
Yes, we are.
And that has a massive impact, not only to, it's not that like he's down at the beach surfing while you're working. There's very much of, we're going to go to this place and this is how it's going to work. And this is how Peter is going to homeschool the kids, etc.
Yeah. So when we decided to go traveling, that was one of the big things was he sort of said to me, look, I'll take the year off and I'll support, the business growth. But also I'll manage all of the domestic kind of side of things so that you can just focus on your business, which has been amazing. I don't think I could have done it otherwise. So we have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and they're both being homeschooled. And we just really wanted to make that work for us while we travel. And it's obviously education is very important to us. And the homeschooling system is amazing now. It's so supportive and so thorough. And the amazing thing is too, you talk to a lot of teachers even, and they say one of the best things you can do for a child when they're young is to take them traveling and show them the world. So Pete helps me a lot, and he also has a good eye for graphic design. So he sort of helps me out even with some of the little logistics of the business sometimes too. He designed my logo and things like that. So fantastic. Yeah, it works really well.
Yeah, we so my partner and I met with you and Peter at the Royal Academy in London. We had a cup of tea and chatted for what was probably a couple of hours actually, and it was very obvious that Peter was very supportive of you, and any way that you could do it was with his support.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I have actually seen on social media that you have actually done and broken out of your hard-working schedule to actually do some and actually see what's going on in the country. Your children were driving some very nice small Land Rovers, which I was very jealous about.
Yes. Last time we came up from Salcombe, which is right down south, we actually popped into a little place called Diggerland, I think it's called. And yes.
Excuse me.
That's okay.
So what I wanted to look at was your 5 tips for people if they were thinking of doing this. What are your 5 tips in terms of getting if someone said, right, I quite fancy picking up the whole of the family and going out and traveling the world? What's your advice?
Do it. Absolutely do it.
Right.
It's amazing. It's incredibly stressful at times, but it's amazing. But the 5 things, I guess, that are really important to maintain a business while you're traveling, the 5 main things that we've sort of looked at as being really important. Probably the first thing is actually having a routine.
Right.
So no matter where we are and no matter what time zone we're in and no matter, what kind of amazing location we're in around the world, we do have a really strict routine. So I actually posted a photo on Facebook about this a couple of weeks ago because so many people just assume that we're on holidays or we're down the beach every day or whatever, and we're not. I literally work, like I said, I get up and start work about 7 in the morning and we work through until about 4 in the afternoon, and during that time Pete's homeschooling the boys and I'm working just like I would in an office. And that's sort of a fairly strict routine. The only time that changes is if we do have to travel. The travel doesn't work out that it's on a weekend, and sometimes it's actually cheaper for us to travel midweek and things like that. So we do change that a little bit, but pretty much whenever we're based somewhere, that's the strict routine that we stick to. And I need to, even for my clients' sake, for them to know that, this is the time that I'm online and I'm available and whatever. So that's the first thing, is having a really solid routine and both of us having that routine so we both know where we're at and how that's happening. The second thing is actually having the flexibility or the mindset, I guess, that, I'm the one that's chosen to go travel, not my clients. And so if my clients want to talk to me at 10 o'clock at night, my time, well, then that's when I need to talk to them. Not, I only work from 9 to 5 London time. So I'm sorry, but if you can't fit into that, well, then too bad. That's the thing, right? So I've chosen to do the traveling. So I've got to work the time zones to suit my clients. And most of them are really good. They're actually all very good. They're very understanding and patient, because there's been lots of times where I've had, meetings booked and then I've got the time zone wrong and, things like that.
It happens,
Yeah, and they're amazing. But that's definitely a key thing as well, is just, having that mindset that you really have to go, well, I'm the one doing this and this is how I'm going to make it work.
Okay.
And not putting that pressure. The third thing is having some really good apps. So obviously traveling, getting back to that whole digital nomad style of thing, it's kind of similar in that sense that I have to have a lot of apps, a lot of online platforms that I'm using to manage my business that some people perhaps would be using. There's no paper, right? So I get people sending me stuff to say, oh, can you print this out and fill out this form and, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I can't. I'm sorry, I've got no printer. And I can't find one in the local area that I'm in. I can't just go down to a business centre and get something printed just so I can sign it. Can you send me an online form or whatever? I use password applications so that I'm not carrying around books with, which is actually a security thing anyway. All of my accounting is fully online, all of that kind of stuff, which I think most people are transitioning their businesses to that anyway these days. So it's actually kind of an easy thing to do. But all of my communication, everything's all virtual. So apps make a huge difference to sort of that management.
Yep.
The other one is, again, this sort of comes back to a bit of a mindset shift, I think, is that, it's kind of uncomfortable not having, for some people especially, it's really uncomfortable not having a regular workspace. I don't have a regular workspace. Like, I'm literally sitting here. Like, to be honest with you, I'm sitting in a bedroom at the moment in a little house down, in a fishing village down the south coast of England. It's not an office. I don't go to the same place to work every day. Sometimes I do actually go to cafes just to get out of the house, or, I'm working out of a co-working space sometimes, depending on where we are. So, and the other thing is, even when I'm in a taxi, I'm working. So if it's in my work time, I sit in a taxi, I log on to my phone, log on to the Wi-Fi on my phone, hook it up to my computer, and I'll spend 3 hours in my taxi working while we're traveling, or if we're in airports waiting for a plane, I'm working. So, so having that mindset that, okay, it's going to be a bit uncomfortable at times, and it does get incredibly frustrating at times, but it's how it's got to be. So that's another key. And then last of all, and my team will love me for saying this, but having an amazing team makes a big difference. As soon as I started traveling and, the business was growing, I realized I was going to need extra team members to help anyway. But having the team in the different time zones is actually an advantage, because what it means is when I can't access someone or something at a certain time, I can get my staff members to do it for me. And that, and that works really well. So having a great team that are taking, picking up the ball when, I'm out of service for a day or something is really handy. But it's definitely possible for, it doesn't have to be somebody who's just working in a digital job like we do. I was talking to an accountant the other day, and he was saying, oh, I'd love to do what you're doing. And I said, well, why don't you? Pretty much, you can communicate with all your clients via Skype. You just have to be a bit more organized, but there's no reason why you can't. So they're my 5 tips: routine, time zones for clients, good apps, working anywhere and everywhere, and having a great team.
So what sort of apps, can you name some of the apps that you use?
Sure. So for passwords, I use OnePass, OnePassword. I use Harvest app for tracking time tracking and accounting. I use Xero for accounting. What else? We use, let me just have a quick look at my phone. There's so many of them on my phone. So we were using GQs and Asana for, that's for task management for my team. What else are we using? There's heaps of them. We're using Canva, and Canva actually works on the phone as well. So we use that for a lot of our stuff. Status Brew is one of our, Status Brew and Hootsuite for some of our scheduling. Dropbox is, Dropbox is actually one of my essentials. So I've got Dropbox on my phone and on my computer. And that's great, because if I'm doing, Instagram posts and stuff for clients, if I'm literally, on the way to the airport and I'm doing an Instagram post, I can just grab the image off of Dropbox, load it up to Instagram, and all set. There's heaps more, but that's probably my top 5 or whatever.
Sharni, that's been fantastic. So your 5 tips about having a routine, communicating with your clients, having the great apps, making use of all of the time in terms of productivity, whether it's in the taxi or whatever, and having a great team. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Fantastic. That's been great, Sharni. I really appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Tim.
Remind people where they can get hold of you.
So they can look me up on my website, which is forgemarketing.com. That's Forge with a J, not a GE. Or they can look me up on any of the social media sites. So just type my name in and I'll come up.
Fantastic. Have a great day. And
Awesome.
I really appreciate the chat.
Thanks, Tim. Sharni. And I'll see you around the traps again.
Bye.
Okay, bye.